So the journey of every believer is a consistent commitment to coming into agreement with God's idea of us. This is us going through the process of divorcing our belief systems that go against what God says. This is us going and being able to relinquish desires and our own experiences that inform us otherwise. So it's really important that as a believer we are consistently committed to this one fact, that we are indeed exactly who God says we are. And that is the foundation that, in my belief, we build our personal identity on. Not the things that go on around us, but instead it comes from the one who created us. And so here are some things that I want us to remember when it comes to personal identity. And these are things that I live by. These are things that I do my very best to make evident and to make a priority in my life. The very first thing is that as believers, we are bound to the standard of Christ in exemplifying the fruit of the Spirit. And so as we discuss fruit of the Spirit, we know that it's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control. Exemplifying those things, they're not optional. That's who we are in Him. And so it is our daily goal to ensure that our life looks that way, that we are living in joy, that we are being loving, and that we are exemplifying all of the other fruit of the Spirit. And we have to remember that there is no doubt and fear where there is a revelation of God's love. So if there is an area where we have doubt, if there is an area where we are consistently fearful, it's because the love of God has not been perfected. And there's some level of distrust when it comes to our relationship with Him in that particular area. Another thing to remember, point number 3, we do not choose who we want to become. We come into agreement with the revealed will of God to be shaped into His image and likeness. God already had a plan for us. We don't have to figure it out. We don't have to discover it. We don't have to find it. The only thing that we are doing is believing in the revealed purpose of God in the earth, the purpose that He has placed in us even before the foundation of the world. And so it's paramount that we are not trying to create a narrative that's unnecessary when God has already given us the script, when He has already established, listen, this is who you are, this is why I created you, and this is what I need you to focus on. And so I believe that when we come into agreement with God's idea of us, it takes a whole lot of the guesswork out of not just boundary building, but life, because we're no longer focused on trying to create our own narrative. Now we're coming into agreement with something that is bigger and higher and so much more than anything that we can fathom on our own. And that is God's intention for our life, for us to live life and to live it abundantly. The fourth thing that I want us to know when it comes to personal identity is this: money, accomplishments, relationships, connections, kind deeds, sacrifices, and the applause of others are irrelevant to our identity. These things may make us feel good, but when it comes to building a Christ-centered foundation of identity and coming into agreement with who we are, it has to be anchored in God alone. We cannot allow anything other than Him to shape the narrative of our identity. We cannot allow anything other than Him to give language to who we are without His consent. And so for a lot of us, when we don't have a strong sense of identity, we can begin to build on foundations that just were not meant to last. We can find ourselves building on the foundation of, what we do well. We find ourselves building on the foundation of the people and the places that celebrate us a lot. And we begin to kind of shape ourselves into what those environments need so that we continue to feed off the praise, the applause, the accolades, the things that make us feel as if we're valuable. But our value was never meant to come from stuff. It was always meant to come from God. We were always meant to live in His idea of us. That's His ultimate purpose for us. And when it comes to identity, that is God's plan for you, that you would disengage and remove yourself from everything that puts you in opposition to His plan, His purpose, and His idea of you, because you are what matters to Him. God tells us very plainly that we are the apple of his eye. He tells us over and over again in his word just how much he loves us, how much he adores us, just how much he wants relationship with us. It's proven through the gospel. It's proven through the way that through time and the age, God has always, always, always had mankind on his mind. And so coming into personal relationship with Jesus, we begin to see how that love is expressed in each of our individual lives. And so it's really, really important for us to have a foundation of identity that is built on the truth of who God is and who he says that we are. All right. So one of the things that happens is that our true identity, God's original idea of us, is usually perverted by traumatic experiences. And what ends up happening is that we develop coping mechanisms that we believe are our personality. We believe that because we operate this way, this is who I am. This is how I've always been. I've always been the strong one. People have always been able to count on me. I've always been responsible. I've always been, I've always been loud. I've always been boisterous. Whatever those things may be, we just believe that we are exactly what our environments informed us to be, but that's not always the case. And so it's important, especially for those of us that are committed to a continual healing journey, to begin to investigate the source of some of our behaviors so that we can decipher between what is our personality and who God says we are, and what is just a response to trauma and the things that we have learned to do to cope with life circumstances. Those things are really, really important, and they help us to come into the true revelation of who we are and to live our life in a powerful and impactful way. Now, it is definitely God's desire that we unlearn these things. And one of the reasons that this is the first thing that I want to build on is because there's no way for you to enforce and build boundaries for a life that you don't see as valuable. It's important for you to understand that your value is inherent and not inherited. It's not something that you have to get from someone else. Your value, you were born with it. God designed you valuable. You are already worth everything in the world to him. The moment that he put you into existence, you are already on his mind. And so it's important for us to understand just how important we are to God, so that when we are making our decisions, it's from a place of love, it's from a place of security and in our personal identity, and not from a place of looking for approval from others. Because that's one of the main reasons that we have poor boundaries, is because we're looking and we're seeking and we're hoping and we're wishing for someone to tell us that we're valuable, that we're important, that we're doing a good job. And so personal identity and being secure in that helps us to relinquish some of those needs that we're seeking out in unhealthy ways, and helps to bring us back to the place where, listen, God is telling me exactly who I am, and I can say no to this opportunity. I can say no to this relationship because I know it's not his best for me. I know what he says about me, and so I don't have to come into agreement with the enemy's plan for my life to bring me into bondage, the enemy's plan for my life to bring me into heartbreak and to bring me into spaces that do not have the capacity to love me well. And so it's really important for us to build this anchor, to understand what that looks like for us specifically, so that as we move forward throughout the next 3 weeks, you have an understanding of who it is you're building boundaries for. Some of us do not spend enough time even knowing ourselves. Some of us do not spend enough time getting to know who it is that we are. We don't know our preferences, we don't know our needs. And so it's really hard to build boundaries from a place of not truly knowing, understanding, or loving ourselves. Yes, Cherise, absolutely. We were born with value. All right, so now we want to jump into relational honesty. And the thing is, before you can be honest with anybody else, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be in a place where you can honestly and very where you can honestly and very confidently express your needs, where you can honestly and very confidently say, this is who I am, these are the needs that I have, and you give people the option of whether or not they want to meet them, or whether or not they even can do that, whether or not they have the capacity for the kind of love that you want. And this is also important when we're going into relationships, because we want to be honest about our own capacity. If someone is expecting for you to call every day and be on the phone for 2 hours, or their love language is acts of service, and that's not really something that you can offer right now because of your schedule, those are the things that we need to think about. Those are the things that we need to understand about ourselves, so that we can go into relationships from an informed place and not from a place of desiring the love of someone else so much that we're forfeiting our own well-being. Now, I want us to understand something when it comes to relationship, and that is that God is fully aware of every need that we have. Your need for acceptance, your need for love, your need to feel that you are valuable, your need to feel and know that you are important. God understands all of those needs, and He has already made provision for each and every one of them. I know that there are moments and seasons in life where we feel like there's something missing. I hardly have friends, or I'm not able to find the mentor to help me in this area that I'm struggling, or I'm not able to find the community that fully accepts me. And we think, that we have to go out and create these spaces. But the truth of the matter is, God has already designed spaces that were meant to grow you into who it is that He's called you to be. One of the things that is important is for Him to come to the place for Him to bring us to the place where we are confident and we are secure enough not to go into those spaces and be shaped by the reality of them. But instead, God wants us to remain who we are, even when we're getting the love that we want. And so if you're insecure, your very first instinct when you get into a space where you are accepted, or when you get into a space where you feel loved, is to do whatever it takes to keep that feeling going, even if it's unhealthy. And so being relationally honest, being honest with yourself and honest with others about where you are and what you need, that helps you to build relationships that stand the test of time and that are not built on insecurity and codependence. And it really brings you to a place where you're approaching relationships the way that God does. God understands that we're not going to be perfect. He understands exactly who we are. And that's why His love for us is so deep and so powerful and so transformational. It's because He knows us. And so sometimes we get into relationships and we don't take time to even know the people that we're getting into relationship with, because we're so blinded by our need for acceptance that we're not soberly assessing the spaces that we're in. But we're going to touch on that next week, assessing relationships and really, really diving into that. So back to honesty. We have to give people the chance to opt out of relationship with us. We have to give people the chance to say, you know what, you're cool and all, but you have a little bit too much going on for me. I really like hanging out with you, but you tend to do this thing, and I don't think this is something that I want to be connected to. We have to be honest so that people can make informed decisions about whether or not they want to remain in relationship with us. Otherwise, what we're really doing is manipulating others to fill needs that we have, and that's not fair. So I want us to remind ourselves of this, that our honesty is going to filter out all of those who don't have the capacity or desire to love us. That's what honesty does. Honesty helps everyone involved to make informed decisions, so that there is no, there are no surprises down the road. There's no, wow, so you didn't like this whole time? Could you imagine being in a relationship with someone and y'all go to the movies every weekend? 3 months down the line, they just blurt out, oh my God, I can't go to the movies again. I hate going there. But the whole relationship was founded on this mutual love for movies. But that's what happens when, and that's a mild example, but we lie about so many things because of our need to be accepted and our need to feel loved. And so what that does is that rob that person of connecting with someone who actually would, enjoy the spaces that they do. And you in turn put yourself in a position where you had to shape shift into someone that you're not. That's not fair to you. That's not fair to the people that you're getting into a relationship with. And so we have to be open, we have to be honest, and we have to be secure enough in the real us, and we have to be accepting enough of ourselves so that we give the opportunity to others to reject us and recognize that that does not diminish our value. Even if I don't want to be in a relationship with you, you're amazing. Even if I decide that you're not the person that I want to have a friendship with, you're still amazing. You're still a great person. And if you don't know that, then my rejection of you or my decision not to continue a relationship with you is going to be detrimental, because you put too much value on another person's opinion of who you are. And that's why personal identity is important, so that we understand the value, the inherent value that we have, and it's not built on other people's opinions. All right, so these are some pointers on how we can cultivate honesty in our relationships. Now, if you find that this is a cycle that you may be going through in your relationships, where you're having trouble being honest, you're having trouble you're having trouble connecting with people because you find that you just kind of shapeshift into whatever you think people want, that's definitely something that you need to investigate. That's something that you need to kind of work through, because more than likely there's an underlying level of trauma, an underlying level of negative experience that has caused you to react in that way. So if that's something that you're struggling with, I want you to shoot me a DM so that we can talk about that in detail with a free consult. All right, so here's how we cultivate honesty in relationships. The very first thing, get to know yourself better. Know you, love you, okay? Know yourself better by asking the hard questions about why you make the decisions that you do and why you respond to certain stimuli the way that you do. It's important for you to know yourself well enough to make informed decisions about what's best for you. All right? The second thing to do, invite accountability into the areas that you struggle through alone. Now, I want to put a disclaimer here. Only do this after you've done step one, after you have cultivated a sense of emotional security where you love yourself enough to hear the critique of other people that you're in relationship with. So if you're still in a place where anytime someone says something to you, you want to break down, it may not be time yet to invite accountability in. You first need to kind of build your self-esteem up enough so that you can handle when someone says, listen, you did that, I didn't like that, and not see it as an attack against you. Not see it as an attack against you as a person, but recognize that it's just a behavior that this particular person does not like. And then you get to decide what you want to do moving forward. All right? The third thing to do when we're cultivating honesty. Cherise, I'm going to leave the replay up, so you're good. I'll make sure that you have it. All right? So the third thing that we want to do, we want to avoid imposing our desire for a relationship onto others through the guise of kindness, gifts, or favors. We cannot buy love. We cannot buy love. We cannot kill people with kindness. We cannot keep giving them favors so that they love us. That's not going to work. That's not how love works. And so it's really important that we do not try to manipulate people in this way, because what this does is open the doorway to resentment. It brings us to a place where everything we're doing is trying to manipulate the response of that person to us. We're trying to make that person respond to us in a particular way. And that's unhealthy. That's very damaging, not just to yourself, but to the other party. And so it's important that we avoid imposing our desire for a relationship onto people in those ways. All right? Now, this is one thing to remember. If being honest is difficult for you because of low self-esteem or other issues, practice being honest in low-risk environments. When I say low risk, I mean people that you don't have deep connection with, or relationships that are particularly in high in value. So you may not want to start building boundaries or saying no to like your mother, your father, your sister, your best friend. You may want to start with, you know, a coworker that you pass by every so often that may be doing something that's a bit irritating. And so as you practice it a little more, you practice speaking up for yourself, and you practice phrases like, I don't like it when you do that, or can you please not do that moving forward? It makes me uncomfortable. Those phrases, practicing those things in spaces where, you know, when there's not a lot on the line, it helps us to build up the muscle of building boundaries. And so that when we get into those high value spaces and we're talking to people that we love dearly, it's a little easier for us to communicate because we've been practicing, because we've put in the work of building our self-esteem, because we're able to confidently communicate our needs without there being accusation and judgment. And so it's really, really important to start with those foundational things of building healthy self-esteem, establishing an understanding of personal identity, and loving yourself enough to make decisions that are in your best interest. All right. And the next thing I want us to do is to give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. It's not easy doing this work. It's not easy recognizing that some of the decisions that we're making are coming from an unhealthy place. And so give yourself grace on this journey of learning to love yourself and learning to set new rules for how other people engage with you, because it's going to take time, it's going to take patience, and it may take more than one or two tries. And so definitely give yourself grace, and don't beat yourself up if you find that, you know, it's difficult in the beginning, because like I said, you're going to build the muscle, and sooner than later it'll be second nature to you to enforce your boundaries because of the love that you have for yourself and for others, and wanting to build relationships on the right foundation. Okay, so that is what this is about. It's building relationships from a healthy place so that you're able to give the love that you have available and you're not depleting yourself. And it also gives us a value for boundaries so that when other people set them, we can honor them. All right, so sometimes what happens is we bend over backwards for people and we violate our own boundaries, and then we expect other people to do the same. So because you jump up at 4 a.m. to drop a friend to the airport who just called you, you know, when you decide, okay, I'm going to try this with the same person, and they don't violate their boundaries in that way, you're going to feel resentful. It's like, I would do this for you. Why wouldn't you do this for me? And so it's important for us to give and to love from a place of, okay, I would like to give this to you because I love you, or I'd like to do this for you because I care for you, as opposed to I want to do this for you so that you would do it for me. You see how that's not kind at all? You see how that's actually kind of selfish? So building healthy boundaries actually helps us to love better. There's nothing selfish about setting boundaries. It's the best thing that you can do for both yourself and for those you love. All right? Another thing to do, this is really important, be aware of your triggers and communicate them effectively without making your response to things that trigger you someone else's responsibility. So if I say that it triggers me, that it triggers me when you say a certain thing or when you do a certain thing to me, I communicate that to you so that you're aware. But I also don't put the responsibility of my response to that on you. I get to decide. If you continue to do that, then I can set a boundary and I can say, listen, if you keep doing this, I'm going to have to distance myself. I'm going to have to talk to you less. I'm going to have to set some new rules for our relationship because this is damaging to me. So understanding your triggers, not so that you can control the other person, but so that you are able to set rules that honor the person that you are and what your needs may be in that particular situation. Another thing, accept rejection as a part of life and not an attack against your worthiness. Accept rejection as a part of life and not as an attack against your worthiness. That's why you need to work on your self-esteem, right? so that you understand that you're valuable. And when people say no to a relationship with you, you recognize that your value is still intact. You're still worthy. You're still loved. Okay? You're still good, regardless of how they may feel about you or whether or not they continue to be in a relationship with you. You're good. And that's what building a healthy foundation of personal identity does for us. It gives us the confidence and it gives us the awareness that we're still valuable regardless of what may be happening around us relationally. All right? The very last thing that I want us to do, and I'm going to wrap up after this, is I want us to do the work to love ourselves so well that we can maintain our autonomy and make healthy relationship choices built on core values and not emotional deficits. When we haven't done the work, a lot of our relationships are started from a place of, I need this, so I need to find it in someone else. As opposed to, this is what I believe about myself, and I'm going to build relationships based on how much I value me. So you don't want to build relationships built off deficits, because the moment that that person cannot fill that, the moment that that person is unable to, or they fail us, listen, people are people, and they're going to people for the rest of their lives. We cannot put that kind of pressure on any relationship. I don't care who it is, mother, father, sister, friend. You cannot put the pressure of any emotional need solely on another person. We have to recognize that we're the ones that are responsible for our well-being, that we're the ones that are responsible for how happy, how joyful, and how peaceful we are. And we invite others into that space, not from a place of a deficit, but from a place of abundance, where we've given ourselves love, where we're giving ourselves understanding, where we're showing grace to ourselves, and we invite others in to experience this love and this grace and this mercy and this goodness, this kindness, this self-control, all of these fruit of the Spirit that we have been cultivating in ourselves. We invite others in to experience that with us. And that is the difference between relationships built in a deficit, where I'm trying to manipulate you into filling needs in me because I don't want to do the work, and relationships built on an understanding of core values, where I understand what's important to me, and so I make sure that my relationships are reflective of the value that God has placed on me. That is how we change the narrative. That is how we shift things relationally. That is how we build healthy relationships, by loving, knowing ourselves, and establishing relationships built on that knowledge and that love of self, so that we have healthy, beautiful, fruitful boundaries that give us the kind of life and relationships that we want. All right? So I want you to remember this one thing. Your true identity is God's original intention for you. Even though it's usually perverted by traumatic experiences and coping mechanisms that we adapted to survive, it's God's desire that we unlearn these behaviors so that we can embrace the fullness of who we are in Him. It's God's desire that we unlearn these behaviors so that we embrace the fullness of who we are in Him. Listen, I want you to, if you have not already, be sure to go and get your digital copy of the workbook so that you are actively doing the work as we do these sessions. All right? The replay will be available until tomorrow, and then I'll upload it to YouTube for any of you that would like the replay. All right? So until next time, live a little, love a lot, be a blessing. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Mwah. Bye.